Hi, thanks in advance for watching a tutorial in Basic WCF Part 2 of 3. Now we are still all about a simple client talking to a simple host service via WCF. Now in Part 1 we used Visual Studio to do the whole thing. It hosted the service and it provided the console app that acted as the client. If you would like to get to the solution, the Visual Studio solution, from where we were at the end of part 1, then you can get it here. So if you go into github.com /Dennis, go to repositories, and there's around-IIS in there. So you can clone or download that, and you're ready to start with part 2. So what are we doing in part 2? I'm glad you asked. So we're going to take the service that we created in part 1 and we're going to move it to be hosted in IIS. So we're just going to be focusing on the service side of things, okay? And it's later on in part 3 that we'll then bring in a client where we kind of prove that there's no Visual Studio going on at all. So let's just do the most basic of reruns. So I have my client and my service in a single solution. The client is set as the startup project. I'm going to click start, and the client is going to pass the request across the wire into the service, and the service is going to return a formatted reply. You pretty much entered 101. Is that what we let's stop that. Is that what we actually said in the service? And predictably, yes, it was. Now, although we won't be using it right now, I next want to show you how I find my way to the DLL that we want to drag into IIS. So we navigate to helloservice.cs. From the tab, we open the folder, drill into bin and debug, because that's where the compiled DLL lives, and so that's going to be our source from when we come to IIS to actually put that into our inet pub, dub root, etc. folders. So just to be clear on that. In my IIS location, right now I just have the default website. So now we are going to use IIS to host our very simple web service, and I'm going to create an application under the default website. So I'm going to say add application. We're going to use Hello Acme Service as a name for the application. Physical path, we'll navigate to inet pub, dubroot, and here I'm going to add our Acme service and OK that. In the root of our Hello Acme service folder, I've put a simple HTML file, because all I want to do is just, at least, even though we are using it as a service, it would be nice to actually prove that we can navigate to it. So if we close that a moment. Sure. Let's close it down, and now if I go back to here and say refresh, and if I go to, so yep, sure, forbidden to display, but if I put in stuff HTML, then we get stuff. So that's a tick that basically IIS is working for us, so that's good. Next thing I'm going to do is, so earlier we had our bin, our debug, and our hello service DLL config, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a bin folder, only because it's easier to create it outside of IIS, and then going to drag the DLL, which is our binary effectively, and our config into the bin folder. And then having done that, I'm going to copy that and stick it into the Hello Acme Service folder. So we have a bin folder with our DLL and our config in there. Go to our service where we built our Visual Studio solution. I'm going to take the app config, copy that across, paste it into there, edit it, make its address http dennis-pc, which is the name of my machine, and then Hello Acme Service, which is the name of our IIS application file, and then it's a basic HTTP binding, and then the contract is against iHello Service, I believe. Yeah, it's against the it's against the interface and not the implementation. Other stuff I want to get rid of. I don't particularly want this here. I'll do. Okay. So that looks kind of okay. HTTP get enabled is true, so we can expose the WSDL. Yeah, just leave that as it is, and make exception, include exception detail in false. From a security point of view, you would not do this. You expose the absolute minimum possible. So ideally, these are all going to be false. Okay, but yeah, this is just development. Let's save that, and then we'll go back into our inetpub folder. I'll just get the right one, and we're going to rename this to web.config. Yeah. Okay, like that. So that's all fine and dandy. Next thing I've done is under Hello Acme Service, I've created this empty acme service.svc. So I'm going to edit this. In the acme service.svc, then I've specified a service of type hello acme service.ihello service. And as we'll see in a moment, that's not quite right, but I'm interested in seeing what the impact of that is. So on the face of it, the impact of having an Hello Acme service is that it just doesn't like it. So we're getting an error in there, exception message, the service only supports classes, basically. So if we now go back in and edit that to remove the I and replace it with the concrete, the implementation, and then we save that, then if we refresh our URL, then this time we've got something healthy. So it is showing us that we could simply attach $WSDL on the end of our URL there. So let's do that. And it's generated all the metadata necessary for creating proxy classes. Not that we will be doing that in part 2, that's something for part 3. You may be thinking, or even saying, that's it? And yes, all we've done is to make the expose the service from behind IIS, and to my mind, that can be quite tricky. So just to get that tick in the box is good. So to summarize what we've done, we're still looking at the client-host relationship. We've been focusing on the host this time being IIS rather than Visual Studio. So we've moved the service inside the host, IIS, and that's not very well represented in that picture, I admit. And then in the final part, part 3, we will then be moving our focus to the client side, and completely removing our dependence on Visual Studio. There'll be no trace of Visual Studio in there. Thanks very much for watching. See you in part 3. Bye.